Why Communism? Plain Talks on Vital Problems. Chapter 5. Section 2. The Struggle Against Imperialist War. War is inseparable from the capitalist system. The Great War of 1914 to 1918 was fought for the redivision of the world. In 15 years after the conclusion of the First Imperialist War, all contradictions of capitalism are much sharper than they were prior to 1914. More rivalries among nations, more armaments, greater international tension, sharper conflicts, and the conflict between the USA and Great Britain, the war of the dollar against the pound. War appears to the capitalists as a way out of the crisis. War is a great feast for the robbers. It means huge war orders, an orgy of speculation, an accumulation of unheard of fortunes, which may look like overcoming the crisis, temporarily at least. War offers to the capitalists the prospect, or at least the hope, of victory over other imperialist powers and in consequence gigantic indemnities, seizures of territories, extension of colonial possessions, and otherwise an increase of market spheres of influence and other gains. War, to be sure, means squandering all the wealth of the man and the power and of the nations. It means actual devastation of provinces and countries and death for great masses of people. But these costs of war have never deterred the capitalists from plunging the countries into that bloody mess. Witness the dismal failures of all the so-called international conferences to settle disputes among the imperialist nations. Not only have all the conferences of the last years ended in fiasco, but they've actually led to a sharpening of all the contradictions that rend capitalist worlds asunder. There was the Lausanne Conference, where the great European imperialist powers tried to settle the reparations problem. It seemed to be settled, but the settlement was shipwrecked on the rocks of America's refusal to yield to the question of war debts. The Lausanne Agreement has remained suspended in the air. There was the question of Manchuria, invaded by Japan. The League of Nations made the gesture of trying to settle the dispute. It sent the Lytton Commission to study the problem. In reply, Japan quit the League of Nations. War in the Far East has not stopped for over 2 years. The Geneva Conference met for months and months. It was supposed to reach a disarmament agreement. The result was an increase in armaments throughout the entire imperialist world. There is only one class of industries that is prospering in the capitalist countries: war industries. Naval armaments are making tremendous progress. Swanson, the Secretary of the Navy, advanced second-to-none program for the American Navy. This program is being carried out with great dispatch. The Japanese imperialists and imperialists of Great Britain have replied with a gigantic naval construction plan. There is a race of armaments between the French and Italian imperialists. The World Economic Conference was a total failure. The result is all sharpening of international rivalries. Economic nationalism, promulgated by leading imperialist nations, is a method of economic warfare. At the same time, it is a method of preparing the economic system of the imperialist countries for the coming armed conflict. Never has the question of markets for the capitalist countries been as acute as it is at present. The question of markets is nothing but a question of redividing the globe among imperialist nations, and that means war. The forces that produce war are more powerful in 1933 than they were in 1913. The only country that stands for peace and that tried to promote a program for peace, disarmament, and unhampered world economic intercourse in Geneva and London is the Soviet Union. War against the Soviet Union is fundamental policy of capitalism. Between 1917 and 1922, the USA, England, France, and Japan fought the Soviet Republic with arms. They dispatched armies of intervention into the Soviet territory, and they financed counter-revolutionary generals that were trying to overthrow the new workers' rule. With intervention and counter-revolution collapsed before the irresistible onslaught of the workers and peasants organized by the Red Army under the leadership of the Bolshevik Party, and the foreign armies had to be withdrawn. There began the economic war against the Soviet Union. This war continues to the present day, but not this alone. There have been innumerable attempts at a military intervention. In 1929, an army was actually sent to eastern Siberia through Manchuria warlord, but this attempt was frustrated by the quick and decisive action of the Red Army. Over and over again, Soviet embassies and trade missions in the capitalist countries have been raided by the Soviet representatives imprisoned. Over and over again, officially sponsored campaigns were conducted in the capitalist countries against the Soviet Union. The Fish Committee is still fresh in the workers' minds. It was a congressional committee supposed to investigate communism in the United States. It did not investigate communism. It made no attempt to study communism as a social phenomena. Instead, it made it specific business to disseminate the most malicious propaganda against the Soviet Union. Nor was the Congress of the United States alone guilty in fabricating insidious lies against the Workers' Republic. Cabinet members and politicians in high standing degrading themselves and spreading tales of Soviet dumping, the forced labor story was widely circulated and made basis for discrimination against Soviet imports. Whether openly hostile or pretending official friendship, whether recognizing the Soviet Union as was finally done by the USA, or the stubbornly refusing recognition, whether concluding non-aggression pacts or severing commercial treaties or even severing diplomatic relations, the attitude of the imperialist countries toward the Soviet Union remains that of an enemy camp. There is not a secret confab of imperialist powers in which conspiracies against the Workers' Republic are not hatched. The recognition of the Soviet Union by the USA has not changed that. Roosevelt and war. We live in an atmosphere of imminent war. All national policies are now directed towards the preparation for war. These so-called conservation camps are, if not training grounds for the future army to be used in war. What is the militarization of schools and colleges if not preparation for war? What are these numerous war games on the water and in the air and on land and sea if not preparations for war? What is the mobilization of industries of the United States, with administrators ready in every section, with machinery so timed as to make it possible to put a whole country on a war basis within a few hours? What are these repeated declarations by cabinet members that the Navy was needed for the purpose of expanding American commerce? What is this modernization of the Army, modernization of battleships, and the huge increase in aerial forces of the United States, if not preparation for war? Roosevelt's government is a war government, and it is ordered to screen these war preparations from the public view for a while that pacifist phrases are used. Roosevelt talking of world peace, socialists applauding, try to make people believe that Roosevelt is an angel of peace, reformist union leaders singing in unison with Roosevelt apostles of peace, a mutual admiration society for laying a smokescreen, Gabriel over the White House. Well, this Hosanna is being sung in munitions plants and working overtime. Poison gas is manufactured in huge quantities. Tanks and armored cars are turned out by the thousands. Dozens of new formidable battleships are being feverishly constructed to make the Navy second to none. The bulk of public works appropriations is turned to military purposes. 300,000 youths are being drilled in the conservation camps under Army officers. A militarist propaganda under the slogan, "Stand behind the President," is in full swing and reminds one of wartime under Wilson. Plants that do not, at present, work for the war are mobilized to begin such work at a moment's notice. The entire war machinery is being perfected by the application of the latest inventions. The administration of the NRA as backed by the war industries and the administration of leading warmongers, the NRA has slaughtered the industry uppermost mind. The NRA means war. Here as elsewhere, we communists remain political realists. We say to the workers, words are chaff. They mean nothing. They mean less than nothing. Deeds count. The deeds of the Roosevelt government are war deeds. We say workers must fight against war. The workers must realize that war is against their interests. There's only one war that is just, and it is the war of the oppressed class for the liberation of war of oppressed nationality for its independence. All other wars are predatory wars. Wars of imperialist powers among themselves are against the Soviet Union. Wars for seizures of territory or the securing of colonies are wars for the profit of exploiters. But they are fought with the bodies of the workers and farmers. The workers and farmers must resist. We cannot stop war altogether. It is not possible to prevent the coming war as long as capitalism lasts. However, war can be postponed. We can hold out a threat over the heads of the ruling class, preventing them, at the very least, from plunging us into carnage. The time element counts. Workers' organizations may grow in the meantime. The Soviet Union may increase its power. The working class may become a greater factor internationally, forcing the governments to refrain from immediate carrying out of their war plans. The fight against war danger is a political fight. The working class must be aroused. There must be protest meetings, mass petitions, demonstration strikes. The powers that be must be given to understand in an unmistakable way that the workers and farmers are dead set against war. The spirit must be communicated to the army. If this fight has been carried out on sufficient If this fight has been carried out with sufficient determination, the ground is prepared for action when the war comes. The workers do not realize it is in their power to postpone war. It is. Workers in ammunition plants go on strike, shut down your plants, prevent governmental strike breakers from resuming work. Railroad men refuse to handle war materials or to transport troops. Keep guard over your railroad yards and depots lest transportation facilities be used by government agents. Marine workers do not load either men or ammunition. Truck drivers refuse to assist in war work. Workers of other industries help the strikers. Farmers refuse to give your foodstuffs and raw materials to be used for the slaughter. If the workers rise against war, the capitalists will, with their armed forces, will try to break the deadlock. There will be attacks on strikers. There will be bloodshed. The workers will have to offer resistance. We communists do not close our eyes to the fact that this means civil war. But when the masses are organized and fight in great numbers under revolutionary leadership, the victory is assured. Part of an army is certain to waver and join the people. There may be victims, but the number cannot be compared to the losses of life and limb that the workers would suffer in an imperialist war. Victory in the Civil War spells doom of the United States. We communists do not say that the workers that they have to begin the Civil War today or tomorrow. We say that the Civil War is the inevitable outcome of long and arduous struggles against the capitalists and their state, and these class struggles must be made up the everyday practice of the working class.